The world has changed, and indeed it continues to change. But that's just expected because change is the only constant thing in life. I think the question really is, who are we? And when I say we, I mean man, meant to be in this constant change. Are we expected to just go with the flow and take things as they come? Or is there a core within us that is meant to guide our actions, decisions in this change? You're welcome to another episode of Chapters, and today is going to be, for want of a word, a deep conversation talking about change, transformation, and the world as it is today and where it is going. And I have with me a very special guest. Let me introduce the book first. The title of the book is Collide, GPS for a New Generation, written by my very special guest, Pastor Moses Ida-Michaels. You're a counselor, you're a teacher, you're a man of God. I think you are many things in one. And Pastor Moses, I say a very warm welcome to Chapters.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And thank you for writing what I consider a very, truly, when I use the word deep, I mean deep. Besides the fact that sometimes I felt I need to open the dictionary. But it really takes one down thinking lane, thought process, the topics and the themes that you examined in the book, the things that we are all going through right now in the world. And like I said, sometimes the question is, so much is happening at the same time. Before you catch up with this change, you wake up the next day and there's something else. And you're just like, what is going on here? And man just seems to be in a rat race to literally catch up with what is going on. But before we go into the book, let me ask you, how did this come about? In all of the things you could have written about, why and how this book?
Okay, Collide is a very interesting book. I've been writing it for 7 years, actually. So the ideas are well matured, well cooked, well cured, if I may say so myself. Because after writing the book for 7 years, you would have written it 2-3 times. So I've written it back-to-back 3 times. In fact, when I started, the first title was Psych.
Psych, P-S-Y-C-H-E.
Yeah,
okay.
Paradigm of a New Generation. That's the title. But I found it to be so intellectual, so mental, so...
Pastor Moses, this book is still intellectual and mental.
So I had to reduce it.
So this is a watered down version?
Yeah, this is a watered down version of the original book I wrote, which was actually 500 pages, and I was a first-time author. So I thought, who read 500 pages?
So this is half, because it's like 200 and something.
So I cut it down, removed some chapters. Then tested it with my daughters until my daughters could understand the language and read it and said, we get it. Then I knew I was ready for the world. What drove me to write this book is to be honest, is actually from pastoring and counseling. Sitting in front of people who were married for 2 weeks and they wanted a divorce. Both of them young. Everything is perfect. They have money. They have everything they need. But they're asking me for a divorce after 2 weeks of being married. Sitting with someone who has gone to Harvard, back, working probably one of the best jobs in Nigeria, and he's going through a mental health malady.
And you're wondering, you have everything.
You have everything. Why are you depressed? So, and then taking people all the way into Christ. I've seen some people, you take some people and bring them to Christ, and they're wrong with speed towards God, and everything just goes sonorous in their life. Some other people stutter and fall on themselves. And then I'm wondering, where is this fall coming from? It's coming from the air. It's a spirit in the air. There's a paradigm in the air. There's a limiting voice in the air that is hurting people and scuttling them and cutting them down to what they're not supposed to be. So I had to now sit with people in counsel. And when I'm sitting in front of people and sharing with them, and then I'm hearing the Holy Spirit ask me, are they okay now? I'm like, no. The Holy Spirit is asking me, what are you going to do about it? I'm like, I'm not the Holy Spirit, you are. What are you going to do about it? And then he started leading me like, okay, make a resource. Then I found most of the other books I read, I always say the Bible says this, the Bible says this, the Bible says this, the Christian books. So most people who are shaking in faith are not even able to hold on to the Bible. So you need a pivot from everyday life. So this is a book of everyday stories. So I went to went to God to ask, like, how do I write something like that? And I had, like, talk like Jesus.
Wow.
How did Jesus speak? Jesus spoke with everyday language. He said, a farmer went out
Very
to plant.
simple.
Yeah. He
Everyday
scattered his seed.
examples.
Yeah, everyday examples. What are the everyday examples of today? So take everyday examples and write an allegory from there. So this is the book of allegories of everyday happenings in the world.
One of the things I love is how, I showed someone this book yesterday, and the person said, what, it is beautiful.
Yeah.
Guys, it is beautiful. The colors, and then every chapter in itself, just the fact that there was a colored page, I just thought was fun. I don't know. These days, people really, reading is work.
Yeah.
And so just opening this, every chapter.
It's designed to bless
images.
you. It's designed to.
It's
It's
beautiful.
printed in full color.
It's beautiful.
Every single copy.
You did amazing
Yeah.
work here. It is beautiful. Now let's go into the book. There are 10 chapters in this book.
Right.
All dealing with maybe different things, but I think at the same time
Connected.
connecting.
Yes.
They're all connected. And from chapter 1, you got me, identity. Because personally, I believe that identity is one of the things facing 99.9999999 of even some of us that think we know what identity is something you almost have to
Go back
reassess every day to be sure, what am I doing in this world? Who am I? And I like how you talked about identity in this book. I mean, you started from talking about the stars themselves that we look up to
Right.
and want to be like, not knowing that even the stars themselves, you said here, stars face an unprecedented amount of pressure to be that person we have all placed on a pedestal, to sing better, to dance smoother, to run faster, to perform better. The hungry crowd relishes this surreal idea of perfection. Does perfection exist for a human being?
There is excellence.
I love it.
There is enhancement. There is optimum performance. There is the best a person can be for so long. As they say, the world is a stage, and we all have 5 minutes of stage glory. After 5 minutes, someone else is taking over.
You know what I love about what you said? If people understood that, everybody would be calmer.
Right.
That really, you have your 5 minutes of fame. I mean, 5 minutes can also mean 5 years,
Yes,
5 hours, 50
50
years.
yeah.
But there would always be someone else. In fact, there's always someone else that is finer than you.
Right.
More intelligent than you.
Can run
hotter than
faster.
you, can run faster than you.
Smoother in words and lyrics.
Yeah. So for you, what is this identity search about, and how can people just be centered in their own identity in the midst of staring at every other person's world in today's world that we live in?
So the identity theft is actually the whole concept about people imposing an identity on you. And because you do one thing so well, you can't be anything else. And the challenge with that is that we now also fall into the conundrum that the world has put us into. And when you extrapolate that and take it to a higher level, we're actually now victims of the identity cliches that we've been placed under. So what I'm encouraging people to do is to go to the identity maker. This book is to say there's a perfect image in the identity maker.
Yeah.
His source, his brew is perfect. What he calls you is real. And if you can, many people struggle with this every day, but if you can embrace what your creator calls you, then you started the journey of identity. You are who he says you are.
Absolutely. And the beautiful thing about that is hearing you is, like you said, there's this, you have to define yourself a certain way.
Right.
And once you are defined in that box, you can't step out of that box again.
No. So in this chapter 1, the opening example was, I met a guy in London Heathrow. He had just met Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt said to him, let's take a picture. He said, no, he said to Usain Bolt, let's take a picture. And Usain Bolt said to him, oh, let's take a picture. He says, no, you have to do this. Usain Bolt says, please, let's do something else. He said, no, like I met Usain Bolt, like, no.
It has to be that your pose, the classic pose.
It's a classic pose. So he's now become a prisoner of that pose. Whatever else he wants to do. He has twins now. He still, every time you meet him, you still want the pose. Why? Because we're slaves of the biggest success we've created. That's the biggest identity theft. So it's not even failure. Even success defines us. And we have to break out of the last success to be significant and to be who we truly are, in our soul.
Listening to you now, I even understand it better. Even success defines us. Wow. Okay, let's talk about the soul.
Yes.
The soul is your chapter 3.
Yes.
I mean, this was just deep on many levels. The whole book is deep. You
For
called
the
it
soul.
The Battle for the Soul. In
Yes.
the unspoken word for soul control, there is no demilitarized zone. Talk about that.
No one is free from the war of the soul. But I opened the chapter with the quote from Oscar Wilde.
Yeah.
How strange a thing is this? A priest tells me the soul is what all the gold in the world, while the merchant says, don't pay a clipped piece of silver for
The battle
the soul.
between the priest and the merchant.
Yeah, the priest says the soul is valuable because he's a priest. He knows the value of the soul. The merchant says, let's not get soulish. Let's not get emotional.
Let's just be
Well, we're
logical.
going to make a deal. Let's go for the hard bargain. So it depends on where you stand. Then these are the two perspectives in the world about the soul.
But for you, I believe when you say collide, so you're saying, but these two, it doesn't have to be either or.
Yeah, there is a clash.
Yes.
Yes. And wherever you stand, there's something happening with where you stand. You're not necessarily wrong because it's never one or the other.
Exactly.
In this clash, it's always a mix. It's always a mix. The fine balance is right there in the middle because you need money. You need the soul to be strong, but you also need the soul to be aware of freedom because today's world, there's a contest for this soul. The media is the mastermind of the contest of the soul. The soul is made up of the will, the intellect, and the emotions.
And emotions.
So the will is actually what we like, what we think we like to do. The intellect is actually what we learned, like what schools and educational institutions tell us, and the emotions are how we feel. So for the will, we feel like this is actually what I want to carry this cup. This is my will to carry this cup. But is it really your will to carry the cup? Or has media told you it's good to carry this cup? Yeah. So yes, from your upbringing, from the environment, from the news, from social media, your idea, which you think is your will, is actually not your idea. So the battle for the soul is the demand for you to be sonorous in your soul, for you to go like ring deep into your soul to like, who am I? What makes me like what I like? What makes me drive what I drive? That is the battle for the soul.
And that is a deep conversation.
Yes, it is a very important conversation.
Everything about media is programming. This is programming.
Absolutely.
This is programming.
Right.
And sometimes, you just feel like, I remember one day I was going past the BRT bus and I saw an advert of a particular brand and I said, that's what I'm going to eat when I get home. And I knew I was being programmed and I accepted the programming. And I always say that for me, there's something called media literacy. Right. It's not to say the media is bad. It's to understand that everyone is selling you something. Right. Consciously or subconsciously. It's to accept that information and know that you're being sold something and to be able to make the decision in your soul. Am I accepting this or am I not? Right. Accepting this. What would you say to that?
So that's actually so true because every media house has an agenda. So it's actually about where you're drinking from. It's so true that we're programmed. And because we're programmed, our ideas are not really ours. And that's why you have to do seasonal audits to see how much toxic ideas have I drunk. And toxicity is not actually what people think toxic, like when you talk to me in a rough way, it's toxic. No, toxic just means that whatever depletes who you originally are, whatever depletes the direction of your life, is actually designed to frustrate you. And if I want to steal you, the biggest asset of value is your soul. So if I target your soul and keep removing from you what you really are about over and over again, eventually I own you.
This is deep.
And that's actually the war. And that's why it's called collide, because it's a clash between who you are and what I'm trying to make you in the world.
That's it. That's it. A clash between who you are and what the world
is trying to
make you.
Yes.
We need to go on a short break now. Wow, I love this conversation. This is profound, and everyone needs to get a copy of this book because we can't even scratch the surface of the things that we are talking about in this book. I think I might even advise that you read it with friends so that's
Right.
like a study.
Yes.
Yes, because I think minds also need to collide.
Right.
When
The,
it
the
comes
whole
to
idea
this
is
book.
actually 10 conversations.
Yeah.
A book of 10 conversations. One conversation, you have the talking points for a conversation, and you can actually sit with a group of friends and just review one topic.
That's it.
Even if you want me to come, I will oblige you.
That's a free invitation right there. Just send us a mail, we'll take him up on it. But for now, let's go on a break, and we'll come back talking about more conversations from the book Collide. You are welcome back to Chapters, and on today's episode we are talking about life and living. I like to call this life and living, or like I told Pastor Moses, the new world.
New world.
The new world.
Absolutely the new world.
Through the eyes of the book Collide. And before we went on the break, you're already taking us on deep level. So let's just go deeper, because we can only go deeper. And I like your chapter 4. I know we had sort of touched on it in chapter 3 about what you take in, but then let's just go into diet, right? I know when people hear diet, they think he talks about food and give us recipes for how to cook the best jollof rice. No,
Right.
It wasn't that kind of diet. It was about the power of what you take in, right, and how that actually affects you. So what was your goal when you wrote this particular chapter?
Okay, it's a connection of body and soul. You know, just as food is to the body, that's how ideas are
Information is
to
to the soul.
to the soul. So what you feed your body with, if you feed your, we all know that, you are what you eat. There's always a line between how you are and your diet. That's how our body is. Exactly the same with our soul. You see somebody who is acting up, you see somebody who is suffering from mental health maladies, go and check what their soul has been told, what their soul drinks every day, what their soul eats every day, what their soul feeds on, the ideas, the thoughts, the paradigms, the upbringing, the person they sit under, the people in their world,
The people they are following.
the people they are following, the people they adore and listen to, actually shape how they become. So your diet is like your soul diet is actually how what you take in makes you to become who you are.
What you're saying is so interesting, and I'm reminded of one story. So there was one day in church, funny enough, a teenager came and said, I feel so terrible, I'm just feeling very bad. I said, what's wrong with you? Why are you feeling terrible? It's not that I naturally know to be upbeat. So I noticed he was listening to something. So I just said, what are you listening to? He said, a song. I said, who sang the song? He called the artist. I didn't know the artist. I said, what are they saying in the song? For some weird reason, he was listening to a song where the guy was saying he wanted to die. And I said, but why do you think you're feeling the way you're feeling when you're listening to this? So he has a brother. So I called his brother and I said, see what your brother is listening to. Just for his brother to tell me, oh, the artist is even dead. And the artist was saying something about he would die by 21 or 21 or something. And he literally, it became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
So I'm like, this is exactly what's going on with you. So you're listening to this. It's changing the inner construct, your emotions, your
Right.
feelings. And, just like we came from soul into diet,
Right.
many times, all these things that you see, you just pass by, it can be a random advert that your mind picked, but you didn't know it picked.
Right.
It's feeding you something.
So it's not even the random thing. Yeah, people are so deliberate in what they listen to on
yeah.
SoundCloud, on their playlist, on what their YouTube video, which on their Instagram, how the Instagram aggregates for you what you've been watching.
Yeah.
If you go into their Instagram feed and just see their mentions and their suggestions, everything is actually arranged in such a way that you can tell why people are the white. Many of these guys are not singing that grace is going to come on you and you're going to be fresh and that newness will come on you. They're telling you that you're going to be salacious, you're going to have sex all night long, you're going to sleep and you're going to make money, you're going to buy Gucci and Prada. That's what they're singing about. And there's no way you can actually say you're running after righteousness and you're feeding your soul these things and there will be no negative effect. You are what you eat. You simply are what you eat. You eat wrong diet, you eat spiritual junk food, you come up with a bloated stomach and with obesity and with a weight problem.
Wow. Thank you for that. Very
Thank you.
important chapter. And then let's go right into, because this feeds into what you were talking about, into mental health.
Right.
It's a big issue now.
A lot more people die from mental health maladies than HIV/AIDS.
Yes.
Apart from malaria, like in Africa, and some of the top lining diseases, mental health is in the top 10 killers in Nigeria. I think it's number 7.
In Nigeria?
Yes, even Nigeria is up there. So in the top 10 killers.
What do you think is the cause?
So before now, the world wasn't as interconnected. So it takes us to netocracy.
Yes,
so
right.
Mental health into netocracy is the next chapter. The
yes.
internet becomes a culture. It becomes a government. So netocracy, democracy, netocracy. So the government...
I had to Google that, by the way.
Yes.
When I saw, I was like, I've never heard this word before. So
Yes,
I figured, I saw,
It was created by 2 Swedish guys, Alexander Bard and Georg van der Quist. They wrote a book called Netocracy. And they were talking about...
in the year 2002 or something,
yes.
when all of this
was not available.
did not even exist.
Yes. So they wrote a book about how the world was going to have new governments, and new governments would be significant individuals. So that tells you the power of these significant individuals. So in this world where these people drive thinking, these people themselves are sometimes confused. Imagine that the person who is you're worshiping, you're following, is selling confusion. So the person is suffering from a mental health malady, is communicating about it. We live in a world where kids in Umunachi in Abia State can see the rich kids of Asia. There's nothing in their world that breaches the gap between extreme wealth and extreme poverty. They have seen the entire world, and this thing makes you tank.
Yes.
Whatever you do, your best way, you cannot be who you want to be. There's a huge earning gap between who people want to be and what they are seeing the world is. And that can only lead to sorrow and deep futility and incapacity of the highest order.
So what should we do? Or how do we begin to... I mean, because what you're saying at the deepest level is actually... I mean, I've thought about it, but I've never really thought about it like that, you know. So you are living in some place somewhere and you are seeing somebody else and you have genuine aspirations. Then you can't sort of see the line between from where I am to where I get there, and you wake up, you are depressed. That's a serious issue.
So at the poverty level, that's what you see. At the performance level, it's actually about me besting you.
Yes.
Because there's a game. So how you come out of it is this. First of all, then you have to go back to identity maker again. So everything dovetails back to identity maker.
I love it.
The identity maker is the fulcrum creator. In the whole design space, you have what is called design or conceptual framework. The whole idea is to go back to the original assemblage. So I used to grow up as a little boy. As a little boy, I used to walk alongside mechanics, and what they used to do is to take lead from old batteries and form patterns. So how they sold these patterns that they take a fulcrum of a metal bearing, and then after they melt the filaments of the battery, they pour this lead into that place, and it takes the structure of the fulcrum. The whole idea of how to repair ourselves is to take ourselves back to the original factory setting. And when we melt ourselves with the heat of God, we can actually reset back to the original way He made us. And if we can teach it, if we can model it, if we can agree that this is what they need to do and connect back to it, then that's the way out of mental health maladies.
And that in itself is a journey.
It's a journey.
It's a journey of life.
First of all, the people have to agree to go on the journey. Then secondly, they have to see pain for what it is. That this pain is not necessarily a bad thing.
People don't want to hear that.
Right. Especially when the pain is physical.
Yeah. Whether it's physical, it's emotional, we don't want pain.
No.
Why do you say pain is not a bad thing? Like explain that.
So in the chapter on pain is a warning stimuli.
Yes.
So pain has the whole idea of helping to carry us. So there's a place where I talk about pain in page 103. Page 102. In the simple definitions above, pain can be perceived as a body helper. Without this warning system, you may go through fire without knowing it. You may step on nails and get injured without feeling a thing. Pain helps the body to sense danger and to respond appropriately, withdrawing itself to safety. Pain prevents us from mortally wounding ourselves. We learn from pain the things which can cause us injury and are to be avoided. Our mental and soulish pain is equally a measure for trauma. Mental pressure qualifies the psychological impact of bad occurrences and the futility of effort. It tells us how all is not well with our mind. It shows us the mindset to find truth.
So pain is itself a compass.
It's a compass. It's a tool to help us. Oh, if you go this way, you're going to, this kind of thoughts are leading you into depression. So fight yourself so that you don't think these kind of thoughts.
And I think, there's a part where you talks about discipline in that chapter, that at the end of the day, sometimes it really just boils down to being disciplined. It really just boils down to sometimes, you have had words in this book that we don't like to say. I think that's on page 131. It said, who became anything without discipline? Right. Who can take up leadership without skills? What athletes win tournaments without rigorous discipline? We accept discipline for achievement, but we reject it as a moral rule. One of
the biggest psychologists I respect is a guy called Jordan Peterson. And he says, the best people in the world are the people who fight through what they go through. If you fall for what you go through, you actually just become anything. But the best people in the world are the people who rise up and say, these challenges in front of me, I have to fight. And those people always become winners in life.
And on this note, we are going to take a break. And we're going to come right back. Well, there's so much to chew in all you've said. But just that last line, fight through what you go through. Wow. I'll leave you with that as we go on a short break. And we'll come right back, still talking about Collide, the GPS for a new generation. You are welcome back to what has been a most enlightening, intense, deep conversation with Pastor Moses. Pastor Moses, you are just taking us. I read the book and I was really like, oh my God, this depth is too deep. And now you are here and you are just taking it 10,000 levels deeper. But I guess that's why it's amazing.
It's therapy.
It's therapy. No, this one's not. This is not. We'll leave here and we'll start thinking. But let's go into chapter 8. Your chapter 8. And this is where you talked about generations colliding. Right. I like this because I really think that there is really a battle for understanding, is the way that I'll call it. Parents, children, the older generation, the younger generation. And just like you said, that these ones blaming these ones is because you didn't do it well. These ones blaming these ones is because you are young and you are self-absorbed. All sorts of things going on. But you ended the chapter by actually saying we need one another. Right. How should and would you advise all of us, because more generations are coming, that are not even this alpha, a newer one.
Yes, after alpha, a new generation will come.
It's only going to get. Yeah. How do we understand the need to work together, and how really does that even work in the midst of our many differences, because there are differences?
So first thing is to go back into why we're seeing these differences. It's a design of generations. Every 20 years, a new generation is launched. And if we actually believe, especially as believers, that God is the designer of the future, then it means that God has already planned another generation to come. So when you see the character of millennials, they are narcissists, they like to take selfies, they are self-absorbed, they don't put anything in the fridge. If you put anything in the fridge, they will take it.
I don't agree. But I will leave it. Wow.
So they don't support the family. Do you understand? They don't contribute money. These are generalizations about millennials. They are self-absorbed and very selfish. I don't think about others. I don't think about themselves. But what created the millennials? The millennials came from their parents who were baby boomers. Their parents gave them everything. Most of them never even went to school without driving a public bus. Many of them were chauffeur-driven into schools, the ones in the circles where we are. So the outcome of that naturally is to feel like, oh, I'm special.
Yeah.
I'm special. It's about me.
Yeah.
My parents think I'm all that and a bag of chips, so it's about me. So when we see where the mindset emerges from, we're able to better understand and accommodate it, and then even mitigate it. Every time since 1920, or even before then, older generations have always looked at small generations and called them names. You guys are not good for the army. You don't think about the nation. You think about yourself. It's always been from generation to generation. And today, millennials are at the butt of the receiving end of the jokes about how incompetent, about how unwise they are.
Millennials are the 1980s to year 2000.
Yeah.
Then the Generation Z is year 2000
To
well,
about 2020, about 20,
So just about,
2016.
Okay.
So about 20 years since 2016. So from 2016, all the babies who are 5 years and below now are Generation Alpha.
Generation tall.
The quality of these ones are the fact that the online avatar is more real to them than their friend in school. So that character they're talking to, whoever they're talking to on the computer, because they grew up first on devices.
They were born straight into
on the
it.
devices before they had friends. They had devices before friends. As a result, their quality is to personalize the people they meet online or the characters they meet online as if these are human beings. So when you see that, what's going to be the paradigm of that generation then? This is why generations collide, because I gave an example of my parents and myself. My great-grandfather never went to school. So my father went to school. So nobody knew the date of my father's date of birth when he died. So we didn't know, because his father did not go to school. So he wrote our own dates in a diary. When we were born, I was born, so 29th of May, he wrote it down. My siblings, I found a diary, old rustic book, like as if it was a great manual of some sort, where he wrote the date of birth of his children. My kids, on the other hand, have never seen a paper diary. They never owned one. So on writing alone, you can see how my grandparents' world is different from my parents, and my parents different from mine, and mine from my children. So when we talk about Gen Alpha, you can see why this war continues. But Malachi was the last prophet of the Old Testament. He said, I'm sending Elijah. He will do only one work. His job is to reconcile fathers to the children and children to their fathers, or else the earth will be cursed. What does that mean? Tony, if your parents were well-to-do or whatever they were, whatever they knew, you're not supposed to start all over. You're supposed to jump from the shoulders of your parents. That makes you more significant than they were. When there's this generation disconnect, it means that all the wisdom of your parents, you will throw it away. And you start all over. And that's a curse. Because your parents will not have anyone to carry on their wisdom. Neither will you have any wisdom to start from.
Wow.
You're going to have to start building your wisdom all over. That is the curse in Malachi. So the call for reconciliation of generation is to avoid this curse. That there will be young people who can take on something and do it excellently.
I know you said something here. A synergy across generations is required for the young to access old insights.
Right.
And for the old to have new zest.
Right.
But let me ask a question about parenting. And you have 4 daughters. And their generation something, and you see their generation something else. Because the truth is, a lot of parents have this issue, right? It seems like they and their children are on 2 different
planets, yes.
Literally. How can effective parenting be done? Especially parents now that have children in the teenage age.
Yes.
They are speaking different languages, and there's a lot of division going on there. So for someone who has children in the teenage age, how would you advise parenting?
So we are very draconian as parents, especially African parents, in the way we go through things. And we feel like discipline is the way. And discipline is the way. But when you're near someone and you don't permit them trust, So trust is one of the tools. As simple as that word is, the tools that bridges generations. So if you're very draconian, you will never end that trust. So how I connect with my daughters is, like, my daughters had to teach me Snapchat. So for them to teach me Snapchat, I knew that they would tell me something like, Dad, you're so old. They would say something like that. You have to swallow it. They say, Dad, this is not how to do this. You have to swallow it. It takes a lot of humility in the parents to be able to swallow the darts that these young people will throw into your heart.
And they just talk, they just say it.
So in Africa, back in the day, they give you backhand.
Before you finish saying it, you would have felt the back.
Right. So after you do that, then they start trusting you to teach them principles. They come to you when they have difficulties. Then you know you start getting some traction. So trust is the gateway between generations.
Yeah. And the work is to be able to earn.
Right. You have to earn the trust.
That trust.
Yeah. And this generation is very aware of whether you are respectable. Respectable means that whether you're humble enough to give them trust and whether you can keep your promise, your own part of the bargain.
In fact, I remember, sorry to cut you short, there was the part where you talked about things, where you went to your friend's house and you spoke to their daughter, and they thought their daughter was one very nice, amazing girl. She had no social media thing, nothing. By the time you spoke to her, she had an Instagram handle, she had a Snapchat handle, and her parents did not know. And her mother had no idea. And as far as her mother was concerned, she's not on any social media. But you know why I brought up Syria? Because I love what you said. And actually, I thought about it, and I said, this is right. And you said, when she told you, you didn't tell her parents.
Right. No, I didn't.
And a part of me was like, but I it's a dicey place to be, but I understood.
I'm a counselor.
You're a counselor.
I don't tell. I don't tell. Many of the things I know about, I cannot tell.
Wow.
So you have to earn that trust. Even if you're, so there are some things. So for example, in non-disclosure in Scotland, when I was a counselor, and non-disclosure Scotland, there are some, if somebody says, I want to kill myself, that already breaches the confidentiality thing. You have to report to the police. Yes. There are levels of this not telling thing. But at the basic level, earn trust.
I thought because that way she earns your trust.
Right. If I come to the house, she talks to me anytime. I get access with young people all the time, like doors open.
So the key is to teach parents how to get this access.
You need access because every generation is coded. In finding your voice, I actually wrote a lexicon of new words that as an adult you will never know.
I think called it double lives or something.
Yes.
They are literally living a double life. At home,
double speak.
They are different. Double speak. That was what it was. They are a different person at home. With their friends, they are a different person entirely.
Right.
That's scary. Okay, let's begin to wrap up this conversation. I think we need to be, and let's just go right to your last chapter because this is really where it has to end. Transformation. Where does transformation begin, and where is it even leading to?
So the whole idea is things are broken in the world. The world is broken. We don't live in a perfect world. But broken things can be fixed.
I love that.
The first time I saw this happen was even on my own leg. But I was 6'7", and I was on a carpenter's table, something this high. And my dad's big voice screamed, "Moses!" And fear, I dropped from the table and cracked my hip bone. So they dragged me to the hospital and laid me there on POP. After a while, the wound got septic, and they were talking amputation. My mom was crying, took me to a local.
Traditional bone setter.
Bone setter. We're living in a village at this time. The bone setter took the 2 legs and said, "Oh, this boy, you guys would have broken him." Took some leaves, pasted on it, drained out the pus, and set the bone. Just heard the sound big, gum. I cried once, and within 2 days, I was walking on the legs. Something like that.
Wow.
Something really drastic like that.
Okay.
So there are people. When you talk about transformation is not surface at all. It's deep, because we are actually the skeleton on which we sit, and brokenness goes deep inside people. When the right formula is applied, even whatever is broken can be fixed. And the repairer of this is not man. So I couch it nicely for the sake of non-Christian readers, but the repairer of souls is God. God is the transformation. You've seen it, we've seen it over and over again. A drunken man beating his wife, mad with rage every day. Something hits him like a bolt. And that same man comes crying to the same woman he used to beat and say to her, being a fool, forgive me. And the entire family begins to oscillate again like a wheel because someone got changed. I know that a lot of people are crying out revolution, revolution in Nigeria right now. And I can ask a few questions. Like, we're talking about Nigeria change. We're saying youth is what will bring change. The youth politicians who have gone into politics, do we have any record that they are less corrupt than the older politicians? The answer is no. So it's not age then. It's change of heart. So you can carry 10 sets of politicians there and they will do the same things. The key to Nigeria is not revolution. True transformation actually negates revolution. Because revolutions assume that the people who are starting this new revolution are pure. And the Bible says it like this: he who can change himself is stronger than him who takes a city.
And I'm just going to read what you said about transformation here. You said transformed people produce love.
Right.
Once you're working from a place of hate or anger or bitterness, that is not transformation.
It's not.
You said they produce love where hate has been. They forgive those who hurt them and lay down their need to always be right. They lose craving the last word to win each argument. They allow themselves to be cheated.
Yes.
And grow the capacity to handle disappointments. You said transformation is beautiful when it happens, but extremely complex
to attain.
To attain. It makes a demand for forgiveness and compassion. This is excruciatingly painful, especially when retribution is deserved. And I think right now a lot of us are working the other way around.
Right.
Retribution is deserved. We know.
Yes.
So we are fighting from that place of retribution.
Right. Pay people back for what the bad they've done. Of course, a lot of innocent blood has been spilled.
Absolutely.
So I go around Nigeria. Even now, I was in Warri last week. I was in Benue 3 weeks ago. I go to Jos, my family's school, my daughter's school in Jos. So I'm a Nigerian fully. And even now, with the difficulty of traveling by road and the fear of kidnapping, my family has to be on the road.
Wow.
We live in the present day Nigeria. I understand what I'm saying when I say that retribution is deserved. People hurt, people are in pain. So we're not saying this thing to undermine the fact that the pain exists in the land, but we're saying that pain cannot pay back pain. So you have to find a place for love. You have to find a place to transform. And that's what this book is about, like a compass in these trying times. Like, how do you navigate the world today? That's actually what the book is about.
And on this note, I want to thank you. Thank you for writing this amazing book. Where can people get copies of this book?
They can get it on Amazon if you're outside Nigeria, but you can also get it in Latena, Pataba Books in Surulere, and Roving Heights, both in Surulere, Landmark, and maybe we can get into more places. I have a place, whoever wants, I have some more copies.
Do you have an email, website?
Yes, collidecentral.com. Collide, C-O-L-L-I-D-E, central.com.
Excellent.
You can also buy it there and we'll deliver to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for, once again, the word deep. There must be a deeper word.
I actually don't think it's deep. I actually think it's real, like it's normal.
It's deeply real.
It's normal.
No, it's not. No, don't even try to. No, this can't be toned down. This can't be toned down.
It's surgical, I agree.
It is.
It's surgical.
And surgical is deep.
Yeah, it's true.
So,
it's true.
Thank you for writing this book.
Thank you for
an amazing, amazing conversation. Anyone who's watching this, you need to just... one of the beautiful things about reading is that it just gets your mind really thinking. And I think that's what we need, a thinking generation across generations.
Right.
Able to think for yourself, think through the things happening in the world, look at it, examine it, think it, unthink it, and when you go back to the identity of the maker, then form the truth. And you put a line in the book, which is normal quote, speak truth
Right.
to power.
Yeah.
Very key. And I'll just end with this line in the book, which is also at the last page of the book. You said, at this time, perspectives collide. A new world replaces old thinking. The transformed will do great things. Life is all about transformation. And I'll add and say transformation is indeed a continuous process. On this note, we've come to the end of chapters today. Thank you for watching this episode. Remember, guys, it's not about what you know, but what you do with what you know. Until the next episode, God bless you. Goodbye.